Today I will share a harrowing story about the brutal murder of a young girl by those she considered friends. Settle in as we delve into this chilling narrative. On the evening of July 1, 2020 in Culiacan, Mexico, an 18-year-old named Lidia Beltran was forcefully taken from her home right in front of her grandmother, who, due to her age, was powerless to intervene. The subsequent investigation would reveal the details of one of the most horrific murders in Mexico's history. Lidia was born in 2002 in Culiacan, a vibrant city in the state of Sinaloa. She was the second of 3 children and spent her entire life in this northwestern Mexican city. Lidia resided with her grandmother Andrea in the Lupa Victoria neighborhood. With her mother living in Costa Rica, Lidia had minimal contact with her and was mostly raised by her grandmother. By mid-2020, like many teenagers, Lidia enjoyed socializing, attending parties, and spending time with friends. She was well-liked, known for her sociability and her striking appearance, standing 1.70 meters tall with long black hair and light hazel eyes, often turned heads. According to a report in El Salvador, Sinaloa, Lidia's uncle Braulio mentioned that she lived a vibrant life and was dearly loved by her family. Lidia and her friends, as described by her uncle, were typical partygoers, a common trait among the youth. It was at one of these parties where she met Paula Nerita Medina, a nurse, and Arandi Menares, a mother of 2. Lidia quickly formed a close bond with them, and what seemed like the beginning of beautiful friendships took a dark turn unexpectedly. On June 30, 2020, a seemingly ordinary Tuesday, Lidia set out to enjoy an evening with these friends. The group attended a small party, which included Paula and Arandi. Also present was Itzel, nicknamed La China, among others. After the party, the group decided to take a drive around the city, stopping at various spots, including a popular lookout point, before heading to the house of another friend, Kelly Michelle Ibarra. Kelly, known to all in the group, invited everyone to stay overnight, a plan Lidia communicated to her family, reassuring them of her safety. The night was spent in good spirits, with the group engaging in typical teenage activities such as chatting and watching movies before retiring to bed. The seemingly innocent events of that evening would soon lead to a tragic series of events that shook everyone involved. This story serves not only as a recount of a tragic event, but also as a cautionary tale about the complexities of trust and the potential darkness lurking within personal relationships. On the morning following a night filled with laughter and camaraderie, a starkly different scene unfolded. Lidia Beltran and her friend Itzel found themselves at the center of a distressing situation when they received calls from another friend, Kelly, claiming that jewelry had been stolen from her house. Despite their claims of ignorance regarding the theft, Lidia and Itzel agreed to help Kelly find the missing items. The situation escalated rapidly when Kelly shared the incident with Paula, who suggested they employ drastic measures to retrieve the stolen valuables. That evening, at around 6:30 p.m., Lidia, at home with her grandmother, was confronted by an agitated Paula and Kelly. Under pressure, Lidia nervously accused Itzel of the theft. Driven by accusation and desperation, Paula and Kelly coerced Lidia into joining them on a confrontational visit to Itzel's house. The journey was tense, with Paula driving a gray Toyota Corolla, accompanied by her sister Alina and her 2 children. Upon arrival, the confrontation turned violent. Lidia was physically assaulted and coerced into admitting responsibility for the theft, a confession made under extreme duress. The group then forced Lidia back to her own home to retrieve the purportedly stolen items. Amid threats of further violence, they discovered some of the missing jewelry in Lidia's possession. Despite her frightened promise to compensate for the loss, her so-called friend's anger was not quelled. In a tragic turn of events, Lidia was forcibly removed from her home, observed helplessly by her grandmother, marking the last moment she would see her granddaughter. The subsequent disappearance prompted Lidia's mother, Maria Vivian, to take immediate action upon learning of her daughter's plight. She gathered evidence, including social media photos identified by Lidia's grandmother Andrea, and filed a police report accusing Paula, Irendi, Kelly, and Alina of involvement in Lidia's disappearance. The investigation into Lidia's disappearance took a grim turn when a burned body was discovered in an empty lot in the El Barrio area of Culiacan. The remains were so severely damaged that initial identification was impossible. The case was treated as a murder investigation, with efforts to identify the body intensifying through DNA comparisons with Lidia's family. As the authorities delved deeper, a preliminary hearing resulted in pre-trial detention for the 3 detainees linked to Lidia's last known whereabouts. Meanwhile, investigators used geolocation data from the suspects' phones to piece together their movements, revealing a trail across various locations. The community's worst fears were confirmed on July 14th, when DNA tests identified the remains as those of Lidia Beltran. The young woman had been subjected to a brutal beating before being set alight. The revelation of Lidia's fate sent shockwaves through her family and the wider community, mourning the loss of a vibrant young life to such a heinous act. The ongoing investigation aimed to bring full justice for Lidia, whose life was tragically cut short by those she once considered friends. The investigation into Lidia Beltran's tragic case took a surprising turn, prompting authorities to reassess the involvement of the individuals initially charged with her disappearance to determine if they were also responsible for her death. After extensive interrogation, Kelly, who was under the age of majority, confessed to her role in the abduction, but not the murder. Consequently, she was transferred to a juvenile court. The situation for Paula and Randy was somewhat different. They appeared before Judge Juan Luis Bertrand, where their public defender, Marita Manchado, argued for the dismissal of the charges related to Lidia's disappearance. She claimed that the prosecution had failed to prove their direct involvement in the crime, other than being present at the scene of Lidia's abduction. The judge found the argument persuasive enough to release Paula, though she was ordered to remain within the city limits to facilitate any potential rearrest should further evidence come to light. In Alina's case, her defense attorney, Hugo Arardi Robles, requested the dismissal of charges on the basis that Lidia's remains had been found and new charges should be considered instead. However, the judge rejected this plea and ordered that Alina remain in pretrial detention while the investigation continued. Amidst these legal developments, Lidia's family took to social media to express their gratitude to everyone involved in the search. They also confirmed that those responsible for Lidia's death were being held accountable. Despite the identification of Lidia's remains, the police continued their investigation, hoping to gather more evidence that might clarify the exact circumstances of her death. Additionally, the community rallied in response to the tragedy. Friends and colleagues of Lidia organized a protest from the Cathedral of Culiacan to the state prosecutor's office of Sinaloa. Participants wore green shirts and carried signs as they marched, chanting slogans demanding justice for Lidia and calling for an end to the violent abductions and femicides that plague their community. The demonstrators emphasized their hope that Lidia had been taken alive and voiced their continued demand to find her in the same condition. This public outcry reflected the broader concerns about women's safety in Sinaloa, where, as reported by the National Public Security System, there had been 6 registered cases of intentional murder of women as of May 2020. The community's response highlighted not only the personal tragedy of Lidia's death, but also the ongoing struggle against violence towards women in the region. From January to June 2020, the specter of femicide loomed large over Mexico, with 13 investigations into such crimes underway. Under Mexican law, femicide is a particularly heinous offense, attracting significant legal scrutiny and public outcry. On July 22, 2020, a pivotal but closed hearing took place, away from the eyes of the media. Marlon Medina Lopez, the special prosecutor for violence against women and vulnerable groups, presented compelling evidence to Judge Caxillo Rivera, arguing that Arandi and Paula were complicit in both the disappearance and murder of Lidia and Beltran. Although Arandi had initially been released due to insufficient evidence, this advantage was lost as new and incriminating evidence surfaced. Further complicating the legal landscape, Paula's sister Alina, still a fugitive, was implicated in the crime months later. Meanwhile, discrepancies emerged regarding Kelly's age. Allegations surfaced that her parents had falsified her age to prevent her from being tried as an adult. As the months turned into a year, media reports in October 2021 highlighted that Paula and Randy remained incarcerated in Quoc, Sinaloa, awaiting further legal proceedings, while Alina remained elusive. Lydia's family continued to rally support through social media, sharing images and messages about the accused, and organizing protests to demand justice and expedite the legal process, particularly to capture and try Alina. On June 25, 2022, 2 years after Lydia's tragic death, a sentencing hearing was held at the regional headquarters of the Criminal Accusation System, Eurocentro. Supervising Judge Grisello Perez delivered a verdict that found Paula and Arandi guilty of Lydia's murder, although they were acquitted of the charge related to her disappearance. The judge laid out the sequence of events and the evidence leading to their conviction, also revealing that 3 men were implicated in the incident. Kelly, who had been misrepresented as a minor, received a 3-year prison sentence. The elusive Alina was still wanted for her role in the murder and her involvement in orchestrating the brutal interrogation and beating of Lidia at her residence on July 1, 2020. On the 2nd anniversary of Lydia's death, the State Prosecutor's Office of Sinaloa announced significant sentences. Paula Nariti Medina received a 50-year sentence as the main perpetrator of the murder, while Arandi Menores was sentenced to 24 years, 9 months, and 1 day. Both were also ordered to pay monetary compensation of about 440 Mexican pesos, equivalent to just over $20,000. Lydia's relatives expressed a bittersweet satisfaction with the verdicts, tempered by ongoing grief and the continued absence of Alina. They vowed to persist in their quest for justice, hoping that the full truth, including the involvement of the 3 men, would eventually come to light. Lidia Anda Beltran, remembered as a vibrant and kind-hearted young woman, tragically paid the ultimate price for a misjudgment in her choice of friends. Her story serves as a somber reminder of the importance of careful personal associations.